Okay, so this is your tool, and you basically line it up with the edge of the leather, and you press down, and you pull. And that's basically it, and it creates a line. And then you can just follow it around. I mean, this is a very uneven piece. It's just something that I cut out. You know, and you can do different designs. You can even extend it and do double lines. This tool is usually, it's called a stitch groover, because normally what people will do if they're going to hand sew is that and you can keep going over it, and the more you go over it, the deeper it gets, depending on, you know, how deep you want it. If you just want it as a guide for stitching, then you don't really have to keep going. Sometimes I use these as decorations, you know, some way to just make the leather stand out. I tend to like the difference between the colors. I think it gives it a little bit more pop on some items. But this will work on any type of leather, and so I can do it here too if you want to see. It does it there. Oh, you can see a difference. You know, and you don't want to press too hard because you don't want to slip. And you always want to make sure you keep your hands away from any sharp objects, because just like with the X-Acto knife, you can get a pretty nasty gash from a lot of the tools that we're using. There's nothing worse than doing what I did there on your finger. That's not a good idea. And it hurts, let me tell you, a lot, and it takes a long time to heal. So as you can see, I'm just continuing to go through, and the more I do it, the deeper the groove gets. And you can just keep going around. They also, you can stop and start too. You just need to make sure you start right back where you stopped. And you can do curves. But this side of the tool really helps as a guide. I usually will do the grooving before I do the edging. Now, somebody asked if there was a way to finish off leathers that are not turned over. Another caveat is that a lot of these tools are used for harder leathers. A lot of these tools will not work on upholstery leathers or thinner leathers. For those, you really kind of do have to either turn them over or leave them raw, like Richard suggested. So there's that. And then an edger, a way to round over the edges of leather. And this one's a burgundy Latigo that I've already edged. I don't know if you can see that. It kind of rounds over, instead of it being such a sharp, it's not a very good, my camera's not focusing very well, but it's kind of very raw looking. You know, it's cut, but it's not, it doesn't look like it's finished. It looks like just somebody cut it out. So what the edger does is it basically takes a strip off the side and kind of rounds it over, like if you were going to sand a piece of wood. Similar to that. Edgers, let me move some of this stuff out of the way. Edgers come in all different sizes. There are different numbers on edgers. I don't know if you can see. Let's see if I can get, there's a number right there. And that's a number 2 edger. I started off when I was learning using a number 1 edger. And they don't make them anymore. That's a number 1 edger. And that's a number 2 edger. And I don't know if you can see the difference. The grooves are wider or deeper. So the higher the number goes, the more leather is going to come off the edge. Typically for 7, 8, even 9 ounce leathers, I don't like a huge edge. I like it just to be rounded over just a little bit. So I typically use the 2s. Let's see if I can get a 3. 3s are even more. And then it goes up 4, 5. What do I have here? This is another 3. And I have multiples of a lot of these things because I have workers that work with me, and I need to have multiple copies. This is a 4. I don't know if you can see the difference. And I think the biggest one is a 5. That's a 5. That's a huge groove. You would really only use that for a really large thickness, like 16 ounce or high, 14, 10, 12, 14. I hope that's helpful to you. This tool you have to be careful with, because if you slip, you can very easily take a gash out of your finger. So like I said, you always want to make sure you keep your tools away from your finger. And I'm going to try and show you what I'm doing here. Basically, I'll do it on this one. Basically what we're doing, see if I can get you a little closer. I can't get the angle right, but I apologize. Anyway, this tool will just take the edge off. So you need to just keep it at a 45-degree angle or such, and just, it's pretty sharp, and you can sharpen these on a stroke board. For the amount of times that I have to do that, it's actually cheaper for me because I'm doing it so often to just buy another tool. I really should get into the habit of sharpening my own tools, but I tend to use my tools until they just don't work anymore or they start to become dangerous. The worst thing for you to do is to work with a, that being said, the worst thing for you to do is to work with a dull tool. Just like with a dull razor or a dull knife, that's when accidents start happening. When the blades get dull and they don't, and you wind up having to push hard, you have a better chance of slipping and taking a piece of your finger off. So like I said, you're going to try and keep that away from your fingers. You put it at an angle, like a 45-degree angle, and I'm really not pushing hard at all. And it's just basically taking the edge off of that. When you get good, you start to go pretty fast, and you can wind up going, see, be careful. You have to be very, very, very careful. See, I almost did that to myself. You shouldn't be pushing too hard. So that's how you use an edger. And again, you can do it on any kind of leather. So I will do these before I start dyeing. I will do all my groove lines and any decorations and any finishing touches before I dye. Because if you're dyeing a veg tan like this and then you go back and you cut this off, the dye is not going to be all the way through because you're dyeing it after the fact. So you'll wind up getting that flush end towards it. So I always will do my edges before I do dyeing. So that's how you do those two things.